All right. So let me tell you real quick a little bit about Greenworks. We started in 2009 in Dallas-Fort Worth area as a home inspection company. And as we've grown, and when I say grown, I mean grow like we've hit the Inc. 5000 5 times in the last 6 years. We are now the largest home inspection company in the nation, and we cover all of Texas. It tells you something about Texas. You don't even have to leave Texas to be bigger than anyone else in the nation. So y'all are in a great market. So we went from, I think I was employee number 7 till we have over 125 employees now. Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Dallas-Fort Worth, those are our major markets, but we do cover all of them. So if y'all are getting in houses or apartment complexes or something like that anywhere in Texas, just let us know. One of the things about us is one of the reasons that we grew is we tried to be a one-stop shop for real estate. So we not only do we do home inspections, residential, commercial, all those things, we also do engineering. So we have a full structural engineering staff, so we can do a foundation investigation for you, write up a repair plan, anything like that. We can also do, in addition to the house, remodel. You want to get rid of a wall, open it up, any of those type things like that. We can do all those things. So we do environmental as well. I actually started environmental 3 years ago or something like that. So we do mold, asbestos, lead-based paint. We do phase inspections for commercial properties and things like that. So pretty much anything that you really need. We also do pest control. So if y'all have apartment complexes or y'all just want to get sprays for your tenants, however many times a year, we can handle all that stuff in-house. So like I said, if we don't do it in-house, we try to do it through partners and stuff like that, but y'all have a great resource here. So trying to be the one-stop shop, and that's really what we've kind of built ourselves on. Yes, ma'am. Greenworks. Yep, inspections and engineering. It's on here, but I don't know how well that's blown up so y'all can see it. So what I'm going to go through tonight is I'm going to go through parts of our inspection. So we actually have this mobile technology. Our guys either carry an iPad or they can do it on their phone. And they're doing the inspection as they go. They're taking the pictures, putting it all in there. The reason that we do that is we're trying to do the fast turnaround time. We typically will get you the inspection report same day or next day guaranteed. So normally by 10 a.m. the next morning, we'll guarantee to have that to you. Our turnaround time right now on getting out to properties is usually within 24 hours. So if you're in one of those tight time crunches, what you're going to be able to do is call us. We'll get somebody out there. You'll have that report as soon as possible. Even for bigger commercial buildings or apartment complexes, stuff like that. Because we have such a big team, we can go out there, and we've done it where we've sent 6 people just to knock it out, whereas you'll go with some of the 1 or 2 man shows, and it'll take them 2 or 3 days to do the inspection and get you another 2 or 3 days to get the report to you. We'll get it to you by that next day. So this is what some of it is. We'll usually get this to you. You'll have the address on it. It'll have the inspector who was out there, and if you ever have an agent in there as well, it'll be on there as well. But what I'm going to talk about tonight is just some of the different deficiencies that you're going to see on a home inspection. Some of the stuff we look at, some of the stuff we'll talk about, and then the things that we can't do as inspectors. So there is some limitations. He was talking about TREC a while ago, so Texas Real Estate Commission. We have to be licensed by them, so we're told by them what we can and can't do, just like a real estate agent is. So we have to go through. When I went through, I personally had to have 400 hours of training and then do ride-along training with the inspectors on live inspections before I could even go take my test. So that's one of the things about Texas. We're one of the most regulated inspection licensing in the nation, and that's because GCs and builders don't have to have their licensing here, so they want to make sure we know all the crazy stuff that goes on, because trust me, we've seen it. So the first thing we'll talk about is foundation. So you're in Texas. I had a real estate agent give me this line. I love it. You're in Texas. The foundation is either going to move or it has moved. So just get ready for that. So one of the things that we'll do is we'll go out, we'll take a look at it. As we're going through the house, we'll look just like any other inspection company. We're looking for doors and windows that aren't working properly, looking for cracking and inside, outside the house, on the foundation, and different things like that that'll show us that there is some type of differential movement. So we'll do that as we go through. We'll kind of get pictures of it. We'll put all that together. But one of the things that we do is, since we're an engineering company, we have our engineers have trained our guys on how to use a zip level. So the zip level is a structural engineer tool that will tell you within 1/10 of an inch all the way across the house how much up and down it is. And in any of our regular home inspections, that we do that for free on everyone. You'll get an elevation map that comes free with it. Now we do have a couple of different types of inspections. So some people don't want the full inspection because they don't need to know if their doorknobs are loose and something like that, because they're going to gut the whole house and go on. So we also offer an inspector property review, where we're only going to hit like the big 5 things. We're going to hit the roofs, the foundation, the HVAC systems, all the mechanical stuff like that, plumbing and electric. So that one wouldn't include the elevation map, but we still are going to look for all the things that we'd like. So you kind of get to pick which one of those things you'd rather do. But on a regular home inspection, especially one if you're concerned about something like the foundation, we can come out and do that foundation investigation after an investor property review if we do see some things that are going to be a problem. So you'll get that map and kind of have an idea. That way, a few years from now, if you start seeing some things going on and you're worried about it, you can have somebody come back out, take the numbers again, and see what they look like and kind of compare them. So a couple of the deficiencies that you'll see on here is on this house, I picked an older house so we could see some different problems. This was one we inspected, and on that one we called foundation level was out of tolerance. And what that's talking about is in that zip level, we have some guidelines for how much up and down it can be within a certain amount of feet to be within the structural engineering's guidelines. And if it's outside of that, then we're going to call that out, and especially if we see any other deficiencies and stuff like that cracking around the house and stuff. The good thing about us doing that is we're not going to just call that out anytime we see a door that's not working or cracking or anything like that. You're going to have some numbers to back it up that we actually are going to do it. So we call it out less than most other inspectors, who sometimes are just trying to cover themselves to make sure they don't get themselves in trouble. Another thing is, as we're walking around, we'll be looking for things like in the picture here where we start seeing those foundation cracking. Foundations are kind of like a detective work. You're going to start seeing a little sign here, a little sign here. When they all start adding up, you have a pretty good idea of what's going on. So we're always looking for those type of things. One thing I would say about the foundation investigation, having the engineers come out and do it, is we'll come out and take the levels and take all the pictures, and the engineer will sit down and write up a report. If it's outside their range that they think it needs repairs, they'll actually write out how they want it repaired. You know, to be this many piers in this area, and it's got to be done this way to this amount of soil pressure and all the things that I don't even know all that stuff, and it'd probably make my brain explode. But they're going to do that, and then you can take that report to your foundation repair company, and they're all going to quote off of that number of piers in that area. Where I've been there when the foundation guy says, okay, you could use 1 or 2 piers in this area, but it's not major. And he goes, really? Because the last guy said I needed 25 at $1,000 a piece, right? So at least you know with an engineer's report that everybody's bidding on the same amount of money, and you can figure out who's really trying to upcharge you and stuff like that and get a better idea. Once it's done, you know it's done correctly. All right. Another thing about grading, and one of the reasons that Texas is so bad on foundations, is because we have expansive soils, so the expansive clays. What happens is when it gets wet, it expands. When it dries up, it contracts. So if y'all have ever been here in the summer and you see the big gap between your soil and your actual foundation where you kind of stick your hand down in there, that's that soil drying out and pulling away. Well, at the same time, the soil below that is dropping, so your house is actually moving up and down. And when that soil's not in contact with the foundation, it lets it tilt in certain areas and things like that. And that's what we call seasonal cracking or seasonal movement. Hopefully you don't let it get too bad, but it is rental property, so if y'all aren't running sprinkler systems or something like that, you can get to where that does move a lot, and that's kind of why Texas is so bad, is because you have to water your foundation. And I had an engineer move from out of state and ask me what the heck that meant, you know, so it made me feel good. So an engineer actually asking me what he's talking about. But the reason we would call out something like a negative grading is when it rains, and especially if you don't have gutters, if that soil is tilted back towards the house, then that water is going to run up against it, and it's going to pond right there. that soil is going to be wetter than everything else around it. It's going to lift your house. It's going to cause some issues. So like, the door that will close in the winter, but it won't close in the summer, those type of things, that's coming from stuff like this. So we always suggest that it slopes away from the house. If it's one of those that they built in the 1970s that they just slapped flat on the ground, can't really slope that away. So, sometimes we'd recommend, getting an area drain or something like that to kind of drain that water away. So we're trying to mention things as we go through that's telling you, all right, here's things that are going on. This is what it's typically causes the damage or whatever that is. And here's some different ways, or at least some people to talk to on how to fix this. We don't want to just walk in and hand you a 50-page report and walk away. We want to kind of educate you. So typically we spend about 30 to 45 minutes at the end of inspections. If y'all are there and want to hear all about the summary and stuff like that, we'll spend that time going through it. Not only just saying, hey, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, but we'll kind of give you an idea about whether these things are major, are they time-consuming fixes, are they more expensive fixes, things like that. And we try to have those conversations with you. So when you walk away, we didn't just give you a massive deal, because Trek tells us we have to put everything in there. So you're going to see some stuff in there. We're going to, like I said, we'll talk about loose doorknobs. We'll talk about cosmetic cracks sometimes in the walls and things like that. But we want to educate you on whether that stuff really matters or not. So by at the end, you'll know what stuff's like a safety hazard, what stuff's just a cosmetic fix and things like that. Have a better idea about what you're really looking at in this home. Some of y'all are probably so good you don't need any of that. Y'all can just be like, thanks for the report, have a good day. So on the roof, we at Greenworks, we walk every roof unless we can. The only ones that we don't walk are ones that are pitched too much or ones that are too steep. But even on those, we walk the valleys and things like that on the steep roofs. But there's certain types of materials that we can't walk on. We have drones, so if we are not able to walk on it, we don't just like some binoculars with an iPhone, like, yeah, it looks okay, and walk away. We're trying to get you the best pictures to make an idea. Now, we're not going to go up there and see some damage and go, you need to replace your whole roof. It's a roofer's job. We'll tell you what the damage is. Is it torn shingles? Do you have missing shingles? Like on this one, you've got one of these ridge vents here that's venting the hot air out of the top of it. One of those things is broken, or the shingles on top of it, that's going to drain water right down into your attic and then into your house. So we want to talk about things like that, and then a roofer, once they see these lists of things that are wrong, they can come and tell you whether they think it's a patch job or a replacement, or however they want to do that. And that's kind of where you get that. But again, kind of like the engineer report, at least you kind of have an idea before they show up on that. Because if I go up there and I find one scuffed shingle and they're like, you need to replace the roof, you probably know who you're dealing with, and you send him on down the road and find the next person. But like I said, we're going to walk those, take those pictures, you get a good idea. Some of the things we're also looking for up there is you'll see some of these vent pipes and things that are sticking up, so we're watching to make sure all of those are done correctly. Some of them can be too low. It can cause stuff to draft back into there, especially with some of those gas heaters and stuff. Then you get CO2 filtering back in the house. So we're looking for as much safety stuff as we can. Typically, I think we did a count a while back. We did look for over 600 things in the house. You hope we don't find all those, but we're going to look for them. If we don't find them, we won't mention them to you, but if we do find them, then we can have that kind of discussion. So when I'm standing up there looking for like 20 minutes at the roof, I'm not just taking a break. I'm actually trying to think of all these things I need to be looking at while I'm up there. So let's move from the roof into the attic. When we get in the attic, some of the things that we're going to look for, and these things are required to be on your inspection reports, it is going to be what kind of roof decking it is. So the newer houses all typically have the plywood. This is an older house, so it did have wood plank. Those are actually stronger as long as they are actually still all intact and stuff, but they're usually on older houses, so sometimes the wood's a little old. But some of that, for a time period, they had some of the plywood that was a lot softer. So if you go to some of the older houses, you'll see some of that waves in between the trusses and stuff like that, and that's usually what's happening. They don't have the wood plank. They had some of that those plywood boards, and they're just sagging a little bit on you. So you kind of have to reinforce some of those, especially if they're going to try to do an overlay of one over the top of the other. But hopefully, y'all don't go doing 2 and 3 layers and stuff like that. We'll tell you what kind of framing type is in there. So a truss system is usually a pre-manufactured one they put in there, and then the other types are usually the ones that are going to be built on site as needed. Ventilation types, talk about that, how to get in there. So your attic entry, this attic entry was in the garage. And then we also talk about what's your type of insulation, how much insulation is in there, because we want to kind of give you an idea whether it's up to standard for the time that the house was built, or if it's something that's low, because that is going to affect your energy costs and stuff like that. So a lot of people want to know that, whether they want to do that or not. I know y'all have rentals, but if somebody's paying $400, $500 a month, and they don't think they should be paying that much, and you look up there and there's 3 inches of insulation, you go, that would make sense. So, and we'll talk about where it's at. So this one was on the attic floor. We also look at attic humidity. Y'all are from Houston, y'all understand humidity. The one reason that we talk about this is a humidity above 60% on a sustained period of time can cause like wood rot and cause mold growth, things like that. So we always mention if it's like that. And typically if it's high in an attic, a lot of times it's just because it doesn't have enough venting. So you make a recommendation that if you're going to do any work on the roof, you add some more venting to it or something like that. Just keep the air moving through there. So we're also looking through there. That's the wood plank running this way that we were talking about. And then these are your truss systems that's holding up your roof. Now, if you look, that circle right there shows you that there was a disconnected rafter in there. That means that area of the roof is going to start sagging over time. You want to get it re-supported because it would break that over time. And we'd probably also mention that those older houses will have those 2x4s. Most of the newer ones will have 2x6s or bigger. So those are just not as solid as some of the newer roofs are. But the wood planks kind of build that up and keep it from being as bad. So we're looking for those type of things. We'll tell you if there's cracked trusses and different things like that in the attic as we're going. Anything that's going to cause a structural issue for you. And the attic's the one place that inspectors really actually get to look at it in most houses to kind of get an idea about how the house was built, because everything else has been covered up by sheetrock or whatever. So it's for us, it's a good idea to get in there and take a look and really know how the house was built at the time. Then we're looking for things like this, found some previous water damage on there. So as we go in with our infrared guns, especially if it's rained recently or something like that. We like to shoot those around and see if there's any wet spots on the bottom side of the deck so we know if there's been a roof leak, things like that. We'd take a look at this to see if it was actually previous or if it is an active water leak. So we're going to look in there. That'll give you an idea about how your roof's doing as well. So we're trying to look at it from every angle that we can because we can't go up there and lift all the shingles up and look for everything like that. Yes, sir?
Can I ask you a question about the structure in the attic? If you've got sheetrock damage on the second floor of the townhouse and you suspect that it may have been caused by heavy weight loads on the third floor, what are you looking for in the attic to see proof of weight load being the cause of the sheetrock damage down there?
We would just look at the main structure, and if we see anything off, we'd recommend an engineer take a look and get you some load calculations and stuff like that. And I'll answer all y'all's questions at the end. That way I can kind of get through it and make sure I don't run over. I don't want to keep y'all here all night. I could talk about houses all day. I guess that's why I became an inspector, right? So another thing that we found up there was some of the damaged planks and things like that. So just those type of things that we're looking for gives us an idea about it, whether it's something going on or something that happened during the construction or remodel or whatever we're looking for. So then we'll go outside, we'll take a look at some things like damaged siding and trim. We see a lot on houses, we'll see the brick and mortar separation. And what we're really worried about with things like this damaged stuff is it looks kind of cosmetic, things like this where you have the lack of sealed penetration. So you can see here that you've got holes into the siding, and behind this is a electrical fixture right here. So it's got a light. There isn't any caulking on there. What's it allowing is that's allowing water to get down behind those and get into the wall. Wall systems are made to drain out and dry. They're supposed to be built that way, but they're not all great at that. And the more water you introduce in the system, the more problems you can have. So while they may look like just, cosmetic little things, we really are trying to look at the entire system and make sure that they're functioning the way they're supposed to. So we'll go through there and get you pictures of all those and kind of talk about those and kind of let you know what those mean. Same thing, if you're missing mortar with bricks, two things: you either get an extra water in there that shouldn't be in there, or possibly you're starting to get those bricks to be loose and they can come out, and you have kind of all those kinds of issues. So we're just going to try to mention anything like that. Fire separation in the ceiling. So the garage is supposed to be built basically like a firebox. It's where the most amount of fires start. People put gasoline in there, they have cars in there, and all kinds of things. So there's the sheetrock that's around on the walls and the ceiling of the garage is supposed to be an X-type sheetrock that's supposed to have like at least 20 minutes of burn before it actually penetrates that sheetrock, and it gives you that 20 minutes to detect the smoke and get out of the house and anything like that. So we do mention some of these safety things for y'all. I know it sounds like it's like, who cares? It's a hole in the garage ceiling, right? But we're worried about those type of things for safety reasons. So we'll call out things like that, just kind of give you an idea about what those really mean. And if you're doing it as a rental property and stuff, then you can show them, hey, this was in the inspection report, but I fixed this because this is for y'all's safety, and it makes you look good as a renter. Or as an owner of a rent house. We'll go through the house and we'll look for things like this. So remember I was talking about earlier about foundation. We're looking for things that are just kind of add up to tell you that something's going on at the foundation. So this door wasn't closing properly. It's binding at the jamb. So not only is that a safety hazard if it won't open and it's a door to the exterior, but it's also a sign that maybe the foundation is moving or something like that. Most people don't install a door that doesn't work and then leave, but I don't know all the contractors. No offense. You have to excuse me. Been coughing. So another thing that for the garage. So this is a door to the garage, and it's one of the hollow core doors. So the real lightweight ones that you use on the interior. That door is exactly like that sheetrock is supposed to be on the garage. It's supposed to be able to have a sustained burn before it comes through. So you can't have the hollow core door. So that's why we call it a fire separation. It was not a solid door. It either has to be a solid core door or a metal door to meet code. And another thing about this one is you'll see it standing open. They want self-closing hinges on the door to the garage, so that if you walk in and let go of it, it's supposed to close itself, right? Because all that fire separation doesn't do any good if you just leave the door open and the fire can come right in. So they typically want that. We don't see it very much, even on new builds. So you're gonna see this on every report. So this is one of them I threw in there on purpose. I'm gonna put this on 3 out of 4 of the inspections that we do. Some of the other things is we'll look for porches and other stairs and things like that around the home, make sure that they're all within safety standards. So we'll look at your stair railing and the steps and make sure that they're all done right. If you've ever walked up or down a pair of stairs and you felt like you were maybe had a little bit too many margaritas the night before, that's because they're probably not the same height and depth and things like that. And those are one things that they consider to be a trip hazard. So we're looking for all kinds of things like that. And then stuff where you got the structural rot, things like that. So you're walking across, you don't fall through. Again, safety hazards, looking for those things. And then where they're going into the ground, they're not supposed to have wood directly into the ground. That's 2 things. Not only does it cause wood rot, but we also do pest control. So another thing that we do on all our inspections is we're going to give you a WDI inspection. So looking for wood destroying insects, termites, things like that. Wood directly into the ground is an invite for termites to come up into that wood and then into the house. So we would write that up as both a structural problem, and then we'd write it up on our WDI inspection as well. So we'll give you a list of all those things that we consider conducive conditions for termites or other wood destroying insects to enter the home. All right, so here's the fun part, panel boxes. He talked about Federal Pacific. There are several others. There's Pushmatic, Zinsco. You think any others, Jeff? Sylvania. There's 4 or 5 of those that were boxes that the reason that they got outlawed or shut down, those companies are bankrupt, is they weren't tripping when they were supposed to be. So that would allow them to overheat. It was causing fires in the homes and burn down. So anytime we see one of those types of boxes, most inspection companies just look at it and go, all right, y'all are going to need that replaced, and they just walk away. We'll actually take a look at it. We'll open it up and look through it, because what we're really looking to do, I did skip one. What we're really looking to do is see if there's any damage in there right now, make sure it's wired up correctly. I don't see any scorch marks, anything like that, because we want to know that before you buy the home. But we are going to recommend an electrician come take a look at it, but sometimes it's a 1950 home. It's been there for 70 plus years. You make your own decisions, but we're going to recommend it be replaced every time. But we do want to make sure, because we have had people that tell us, no, I don't want to replace it. I'm going to leave it where it is. And we'll say, okay, that's fine. Here's what it looks like. It's wired up correctly. I don't see any immediate damage right now, but have a second opinion from an electrician. The fun part about electricity in older homes is that these homes were built when there was different codes. So we are not code inspectors. We meet a minimum building standard. We are all over Texas, and every one of my inspectors couldn't know every code in every city because they change throughout the cities, but they have to meet a baseline. So that's what we're kind of inspecting to. But there's also something that they call grandfathered in. So if you built this house in 1950, they're not going to require you to meet their 2024 electrical codes. They have this deal where they call you grandfathered in. You don't have to change it as long as you're not pulling major permits doing those certain type things. So if you don't have to pull a permit to do electrical work and you don't have GFCIs, right? So your ground fault circuit interrupters in the kitchens and bathrooms and things like that, they're not going to make you do that when you buy the home. They will make you do that if you do go in to replace wiring and do all the different things like that, though. So we'll kind of have those discussions with you about, hey, this was the way it was built at the time. It was fine as then. Now they expect this. So you kind of have an idea about some things that you may or may not have to change if you go do a remodel as well. So like I said, GFCIs in all the wet areas is something they require. This one says no oofer or a slab ground. So that's how they build all the new houses. They have grounding that goes into the actual foundation. They used to do it as just putting 2 rods in the ground or some of the other types that they've done in the past. So we would call that out, but we'd also tell you, hey, it's grandfathered in. It doesn't have to have that. That's just the best way to do it now. And especially if it's a pier and beam, they don't, you're obviously not going to be able to do that. But we'll go in and talk about these different things. Some of the missing knockouts, not a big deal, but we do mention it so everybody understands that it is there. One of them that we'll go through is when we go through houses that are the older houses, we're going to be looking for things like aluminum wiring and some stuff like that. So we will pull some random outlets throughout the house and look and see if it's been wired up correctly and things like that. This is actually a picture of a open ground. So that means that it has the hot and the neutral wire, but it doesn't have the ground wire hooked up correctly. And the reason we mention this is because if you get a surge of electricity through the house, through a lightning strike or something through the grid or something like that, it can burn out your TVs and different electrical stuff, or it can actually cause a fire because it's not grounded properly. So we will mention stuff like this. Some houses were just built that way. If they're old enough, they didn't put ground wires in it. I mean, we were talking earlier about knob and tube wiring where they used to have exposed wire with no insulation running through the house by the ceiling. So we've done some crazy things in the past just to get somebody into a house. So heating and HVAC equipment, some of the things that we're looking for, so we will turn them on, but we go open them up. We also take pictures like down here at the bottom of the model and serial number, so we can tell you age of it and just some different things like that. So this one's a 2003. You don't want to know how I have to know all those codes in my head for the different brands, but typically in here it says a study done in 2007 showed that gas-fired heaters are about 18 years of life. If you put it in an attic in Texas, it's going to be less than that probably. So we will mention the age of it and tell you, hey, you know, it's 15 to 20 years is the average lifespan. This one is this old, and kind of let you make the decision whether you want to replace it then or not. But we're going to test it anyway so we have an idea about how it's working. We're going to be looking for these deficiencies. We pull off the panels and look at all those different things. We'll tell you if we see anything on the inside. A bunch of buildup usually means it hasn't been serviced. That means that could shorten its lifespan and things like that. So on this one, some of the things that we found, one of them is this gas line right here doesn't have a drip loop. There's supposed to be a leg down there that as the gas runs over, it drops sediment down in there, so it doesn't go in there and clog up your burners. So that's a newer thing that they've started doing. We'll mention if that isn't there. And then also this is a flex hose. So if that actually went through the cabinet, where it goes through the cabinet, there's no rubber grommet or anything, so it can actually sit there and rub against that metal, and over time it can cause a leak in the gas line. So we always recommend the way that this one's set up with the iron pipe that's going right through there. So those should never go through a wall, they should never go through a cabinet or anything like that. So if we saw that, that would be in the report as well, and we'd try to explain to y'all why that is. One of the things that we found is for the heater, when we were doing it on this one, it had excessive differentials. So we run the heater, what we're doing is we're measuring each room on the temperature coming out of the vents. If there's 10 degrees or more difference, then it's considered to be outside the differentials that it's supposed to be. Y'all have all been in a house where in one room you're in your tank top and shorts, and the other room you got your sweater on, right? Those are the type houses where you'll see 15 to 20 degree differentials between the different rooms coming out. And it's airflow or something like that that needs to be adjusted. The HVAC system is just not working the way it's supposed to, so that's when we would recommend an HVAC person come take a look. So this was a heat pump, and if you'll see, it says insufficient differentials. So the heater had too much difference between the rooms, and what we're looking for on the AC when we turn them on and run them is we're looking for a differential of 15 degrees or more. So if you look at, I think it's the kitchen up here, it was a 61 at the return and the supply was only 50, so the differential was only 11. It's telling you it's not cooling enough to actually cool down that area of your house, and that's when we'd recommend that have somebody come take a look at it and maybe get it serviced. So we are actually pulling everything apart. We're also testing it, and we're testing it to its limit in the best we can. So while we're going through the house, we have every light in the house on, we have the HVAC system running. We're trying to turn everything on the house like it's fully occupied, like a holiday party, because we want to find out if anything is not going to work the way it's supposed to. Maybe that HVAC system is not getting enough electricity when all the lights are on or something like that. So we want to diagnose as many problems as we can, put as much stress on the house as we can, and see if we can make something go haywire while we're there. We'd rather it go haywire while we're there than when y'all move into it or get somebody in there. This one also has R22 coolant. So that is the old type of coolant that the ACs used to use. They've changed to like an R410 now. They don't even make R22 anymore. So if you go to buy a house that has this type of deal, they're going to just tell you you're going to have to replace it. So it's not if it's leaking, it's not a, hey, go fix the leak and refill it. It's a go replace the whole system. So y'all need to be aware of any houses that y'all run across that have that kind of stuff, because if it doesn't cost you right then, it's going to cost you a little ways down the line, because once that has a problem, there's nothing they can do about it. They'll just get rid of it for you. So that's what that's talking about with the outdated coolant. We're looking for all kinds of stuff on the house, whether small or big. This one's no anti-siphon on the exterior water faucet. What that really is, it's kind of like a backflow for the house. Like if that had a hose hooked up to it and the hose was actually sitting in water and somebody turned on the faucet on the inside, it could actually suck that water back into the house if it doesn't have that anti-siphon. It's something that's like $7 at Home Depot and you put it on there. It's an easy fix, but those are the type of things we tell you and kind of explain to you whether it's a big deal or not.
Can you go back to the unit? Like, yeah, where does it say what kind of refrigerant?
So contains HCFC 22. Most of them will say R22 or the 410. They're all a little bit different, so you just kind of have to hunt on there. You kind of learn to look for certain numbers on there is what you really get used to doing. We'll take a look at your water heater as well. We'll run hot water in every room, make sure every faucet has hot water to it. But some of the things that we're mentioning here is we're going to tell you what size it is, whether it's gas or electric. You'll know things like if you have a 2-bedroom house and it's got like a 40-gallon tank, that's probably okay. But if you start getting to 3 and 4 bathrooms and it's 40-gallon tanks, they recommend to have bigger ones. So if we see certain things like that, we're going to mention it. And again, we'll tell you the age of it. We'll tell you where it's at. We're looking to see if it has a drain pan underneath it or not, especially if they put it like in the closet inside the house or if they put it in the attic, which is crazy to me, but we do crazy things here in Texas. I never want 80 gallons of water hanging over my master bedroom, but you know, fun stuff here. Like I said, nobody's licensed, so they just do whatever they want. At least we're looking for drain pans, make sure it has drain lines that go to the exterior of the house and things like that to try to make it as convenient or as non-damaging as possible for you. And then on the bottom part is a termination point. They want it to be within 6 inches from the ground, and that's just because there's something on the water heater called the temperature pressure relief valve. If it gets above temperature or it gets above pressure, it can actually. Has anybody watched the Mythbusters where they shoot the water heater out into space pretty much? That's what the temperature pressure relief valve is designed to do. It doesn't let it blow up or send 180-degree hot water into the house where you can get third-degree burns. So if that pops off because of one of those things and you happen to be walking by and it's 180-degree water coming out of that and you get splashed with it, that's third-degree burn. So if they put it within 6 inches of the ground, it just makes it a little safer. I know it's 1 in a million, but some of us have that kind of luck, so we just want to make sure sometimes. All right. So now we're getting into some of the appliances, some of the things we're looking for. So this is actually a gas stove right here, and your vent fan right there. If you look in this cabinet above here, there's no vent going to the exterior of the house. So when you have a gas stove like this, it burns, and it puts out CO2. And that CO2 builds up in the house. Anything that's above a gas range or a gas oven is supposed to vent to the exterior to prevent that excess buildup of CO2 in the house. Even if it's there and you don't turn it on, we've done it. We've showed people before. They'll have one of those 5-burner stoves or whatever, and we'll just turn it on and watch the carbon dioxide alarms go off in like 2 minutes. So that's a good thing to have those on and have those going. But the ones that just recirculate them back into the kitchen, those are not charcoal filters or anything like that. That's going to take that CO2 out. It basically takes grease out of the air, is all it really does. So anytime we see that, we're going to recommend that they change that to the vented to the exterior just for safety purposes. A couple other safety things that we do. We do look at it. We tell you whether it's gas or electric. We tell you whether the oven heats up within 25 degrees of what it's supposed to, but then we start looking at some of the safety ones. So one of the big ones is the gas valve was not accessible. So for those, you're supposed to have a gas shutoff valve within 6 feet of it in case of an emergency. Sometimes you'll have those ranges where you have to pull the drawers out to get to it. I'll tell you this. If there's a 4-foot flame going on right here, I am not going to stick my head up under here to turn off a gas valve. I do not consider that accessible. So it's really there for emergency purposes. And I will tell you, I've actually used that before for a fireplace. I was testing one in a house with a couple of people, and I turned it on, and their valve broke, and we had to go to the outside of the house, and we had to turn off the main gas line to the house that hadn't been turned off in 20 years. So it was me and another guy and a 12-inch crescent wrench, and we barely got it off. So those gas shutoff valves are very helpful in certain situations. And then we'll also talk about something called an anti-tip that are on these type of ovens. So if you fold the door down, some people have taken a turkey out for Thanksgiving, they sit on the door while it's down. The whole thing will just flip over if they don't have that anti-tip on there. It's also a safety feature, so you have crazy kids that run and jump on the door and the whole thing comes over on there. So we do mention a lot of things. Sometimes it just seems like a trivial little thing, but there's usually a reason. Somebody did something, got hurt, or somebody did something and got sued, so now it's a regulation. Welcome to the building world. All right, so one of the things that we do at the end is we do a final checklist that'll be part of your report. It'll show you things like, hey, was the oven turned off when we left? Did we turn the lights off? Did we set the thermostat back to where it was supposed to be? Was the sprinkler system set? And the reason we do this is to protect both the buyer and ourselves, so that the seller doesn't come back and say, oh, you left my sprinkler on and you flooded my house, or you left my gas on, and those type of things. So we're trying to protect you and our inspectors and make sure everybody's happy in that type of situation, because our job is details. We are here to tell you the details, but we don't want to scare you with them. We want to educate you. Every time you leave an inspection with us, we want you to know a little bit more about a house.